This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From custom domains to beautiful websites using their easily customizable templates that you can have up and running in minutes, e-commerce, email and email marketing, SEO, analytics, and scheduling, Squarespace does it all and has done it for us for the last 10 years. If you are a small to mid-sized business in any industry, Squarespace is the place to go for all of your website needs. Hop over to www.squarespace.com/Hugh for a free trial. And if you like what you see and want to move forward, receive 10% off your first order by using the discount code Hugh at checkout. Thanks, Squarespace. Hey everybody, I'm Hugh Brownstone for Three Blind Men and an Elephant. And today, I want to talk to you about Sigma's just announced, well, it was announced yesterday, $1,500 dust and splash resistant, internally focusing constant aperture 28 to 105 DGDN Art 2.8, available in Sony and Leica L mount. Better yet, let me show you. Bottom line, this Sigma is one heck of a lens in the real world. From sharpness to chromatic aberration, distortion, flare, vignetting, ghosting, autofocus, weather sealing, this optic does the business for 95% of us 95% of the time. In my time with it, there was simply nothing of consequence, nothing to give me pause about its image quality, build quality, versatility, or value at anything near normal image sizes and viewing distances. My primary concern? Size and weight, although that is just me, given our primary focus here at Three Blind Men and an Elephant, which is black and white street photography. My secondary concern? That it doesn't defy the laws of physics or economics, because in spite of the fact that it is lighter than its closest competitor, with image quality rivaling many primes, getting better as one moves from 28 through 35, 50, settling somewhere between 50 and 105 millimeters for the sweet spot, against the best primes, which is what I pay for and use for 99% of my work out on the streets of New York, London, Paris, Berlin, and Tokyo. The Sigma is big and heavy on my camera, far more conspicuous, 1 or 2 stops slower, which is important for my evening work, and it isn't as optically performant, which is clear enough to see at stupid high pixel peeping magnification, or when, like I do, using sensor resolution to carry lighter than one would otherwise, that is, using smaller, lighter lenses, cropping the crap out of an image instead of lugging around even a 70 to 200, or when printing big and inviting people to view images of the urban landscapes I love to do at closer than normal viewing distances. Like other recent Sigmas, however, there are other things to recommend it as well that I haven't already mentioned, like a lockable, declickable aperture ring, a pair of customizable function buttons, a lockable zoom ring, and more esoteric stuff under the sheets like a barrel made of magnesium instead of aluminum to make it stronger and lighter. Sigma going so far as to build a separate facility for magnesium production. Complex lens design, special lens elements, coatings. However you look at it, Sigma is hardly resting on its laurels, and this is one tough lens to beat in its category. if, as I've just suggested, what that category offers and the trade-offs Sigma has made to be there are what you need or want. If you are an event photographer, a sports photographer, for certain sports anyway, say shooting courtside at a basketball game, or a photojournalist in the thick of things, and think of this Sigma as the one holy trinity-ish fast zoom to have when you can have only one, which is the way I tend to think about it, the 28-105 2.8 DGD-NR can be a compelling choice because it essentially means no lens switching, light gathering about as good as it gets for anything remotely similar, even relatively large magnification up close, which, if not truly macro, will still be useful for, say, wedding ring close-ups. Its nearest competitor is in Sony's E-mount lens ecosystem, and it is the outstanding and image-stabilized, the Sigma is not, almost identically sized but 17% heavier, 20% more expensive, variable aperture Tamron 35-150 f2-2.8. Who remembers the rest of the nomenclature? Its nearest competitor in the L-mount alliance is the also outstanding 13% smaller, 15% lighter, but one stop slower toward the long end and almost 300% more expensive Leica Vario Elmarit 24-90 2.8 to f4. The Tamron offers more reach at the top end. The Leica Vario Elmarit offers more reach at the bottom end. It's image stabilized as well. And this is not inconsequential, as all three of these bad boys start feeling heavier and heavier over a shooting session. On the other hand, the Sigma offers more reach than the Tamron at the bottom end, more reach than the Leica at the top end, and becomes faster than the Leica at maximum aperture as the Leica's variable aperture evolves quickly from 2.8 to f4 as one zooms in, as fast, for all intents and purposes, as the Tamron's variable aperture moves quickly from f2 to 2.8 as one zooms in on it. As for image quality, I've tested all three of these lenses, but across different camera bodies at resolutions from 12 megapixels with the Tamron on our A7S III to this Sigma at 61 megapixels on our Leica SL3, so I really can't say definitively how they would rank. I would be willing to assert, however, that at least at an instinctual level, this Sigma is better corrected for flare and ghosting than the Tamron. Other natural competitors are Sony's and Panasonic's 24-105 f4s, which some might argue offer a more compelling set of trade-offs. And for many of us, I'd be inclined to agree. On the one hand, each of these lenses is, again, optically stabilized and has a usefully wider field of view at the bottom end in a smaller, lighter, and lower-priced package. Sony's 24-105 f4 is 33% smaller, 50% lighter, and 36% less expensive than the Sigma. The Lumix 24-105 f4 is 29% smaller, 32% lighter, and 29% less expensive than the Sigma. On the other hand, neither of these lenses is as optically performant as the Sigma, and both are a full stop slower. A more interesting comparison in terms of what Sigma's been able to achieve, even if not directly relevant for Sony or L-mount shooters, but says something about the industry. Canon's RF 24-105 f2.8 offers the 24mm bottom end and image stabilization of the 24-105 f4s while retaining the same constant 2.8 maximum aperture of the Sigma. But the Canon is 26% bigger, 31% heavier, and exactly twice the price of the Sigma. Too bad for Canon shooters, really, that the company continues to keep its lens mount closed to autofocus competitors. Although, fair enough. Too bad for Sony shooters that Sony continues to limit the burst rate of non-OEM lenses to 15 frames per second in continuous autofocus mode, which can indeed be relevant, as I learned recently at a polo match, where I discovered that the 10 frames per second burst rate of my A7R5 was, for the very first time, slower than I'd wish. Fortunately, if you're an L-mount shooter, the lens will shoot as fast as any L-mount body can capture, which also happens to be 30 frames per second on the Lumix S5 II, shooting electronic shutter in RAW. Oh well. But then there's this. While the Sigma focuses internally, it doesn't zoom internally. This can lead to a higher likelihood of dust or moisture finding their way inside were this not so. While Sigma's weather sealing has always proven sufficient for my needs, its lenses are not IP rated, like say my Leica SL3 or Q3. Then again, very few lenses are. Do you know of any? Which in the end will probably matter only to those of us who gravitate toward extreme environments, which would make the appeal of a single zoom lens in any event, no lens swapping necessary, all the more obvious. As for Claudia or me personally, well, as I've already said, for what we do, even though I was impressed by the image quality, build quality, autofocus performance, you're seeing it now, versatility and value of the 28-105, it is big and heavy over the course of a half day of street work. Even if it is lighter than the Tamron. And I do think Sigma's own 24-70 2.8 DGDN Art Mark II, Sony's 24-70 2.8 G Master II are smaller, lighter, and optically even better. Claudia would rather have the Sony G Master Mark II bolted to her A7 CR all day long, and this is how she rolls most of the time. But she was equally impressed by the also smaller, lighter, wider, and more optically performant Sigma 24-70 Mark II on her SL3. This guy. And if budget is an issue, that Sigma is a no-brainer for pretty much anyone. Were I shooting with a zoom, I'd rather have the Sigma Mark II as well. But what I'd really prefer, and this is how I roll most of the time, is a smaller, lighter prime on my Leica SL3 like this Apo Summicron SL90, f2 by the way, paired with my 28mm equipped Q3 clipped to my belt with the helium grip attached. Maybe Sigma's brilliant little 17 f4 in pocket for those times when I want to go really wide, otherwise zooming with my feet or cropping an image in post. So I'll wrap it up this way for now. Sigma's 28-105 2.8 DGDN Art is exactly what I've come to expect from Sigma. Top-tier optics and build quality in the category, competitive with OEM glass at a fraction of the price. If you want one holy trinity-ish standard zoom to do it all, need the additional stop of light, love the idea of not having to change lenses, don't need to go longer or wider, and don't mind carrying that weight. As I said at the beginning, it is tough to beat. The only reasons to go for the more expensive and heavier Tamron are because you're willing to sacrifice the bottom end for top and have image stabilization. The only reason to go for the nose-bleedingly more expensive Leica Vario Elmaret is because you want something smaller, lighter, again with image stabilization, and possibly better image quality, although again, I'd have to test them side by side to be sure. You're not willing to sacrifice a wider bottom end, but you are willing to sacrifice top end, and you don't mind spending 4 times the price to get it. But as I just suggested, you could get this with Sigma's own 24-70 2.8 DGN Art Mark II as well. Then again, if the Sigma doesn't quite measure up to the best primes, and it doesn't, but no zooms do, the superior image quality of those primes will amount to a distinction without a difference for 99% of us, 99% of the time. Only under the most extreme cropping, when displaying images at far larger than normal size and asking viewers to explore them at far closer than normal viewing distances. Or when pixel peeping at, say it with me now, stupid high magnification pixel peeping, just because. Will those of us with the most discerning eye appreciate the difference that truly is there? In the end, some of us will prefer the wider 24mm field of view at the bottom end of the Leica. Some of us will prefer the narrower 150mm field of view at the top end of the Tamron. Some of us will prefer the smaller size, lighter weight, and lower cost of the 24-105 f4s available in either mount and still be perfectly happy with their image quality. Some of us will prefer and be willing to pay for the smaller size, lighter weight, and incremental improvements in image quality offered by 2 of the best standard Holy Trinity zooms ever produced. Sony's and Sigma's latest 24-70 2.8 Mark IIs. Some of us may augment that holy trinity standard zoom with something like Sony's 20mm 1.8 or Sigma's 17mm f4 when we want to go wider. Sigma's or Sony's 85, 105, or 135 primes when we want to go longer. Look, it's all good. You knew this was going to come. Finally, some of us will still prefer the fastest, lightest, on camera anyway, and highest image quality primes, not only willing to pay for them, but in the end willing to carry, perhaps, more total weight and put up with the disadvantages of futzing with lens changes or schlepping multiple bodies with lenses attached. Hold that thought for another video. This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From custom domains to beautiful websites using their easily customizable templates that you can have up and running in minutes, e-commerce, email and email marketing, SEO, analytics, and scheduling, Squarespace does it all and has done it for us for the last 10 years. If you are a small to mid-sized business in any industry, Squarespace is the place to go for all of your website needs. Hop over to www.squarespace.com/Hugh for a free trial. And if you like what you see and want to move forward, receive 10% off your first order by using the discount code HUGH at checkout. Thanks, Squarespace.